Our flight from Zanzibar to Doha would take us about 5 hours. When we arrived, the plan was to stay at a hotel for a few hours, catch a few hours of sleep, eat some breakfast, and then get picked up from our tour guide for a tour that would last about 6 hours. We knew that the day would be pretty long, so we made sure to eat something before we got picked up. We were ready and very excited to see this beautiful city of Doha. So we got picked up by our tour guide and hit the road. Our tour stops would include the National Museum of Qatar, the Souq Waqif, Flagpoles of the World, the Katara Cultural Village, and Pearl Island. Our first stop at the museum was great. The museum had to be one of the nicest museums I have ever visited. Architecturally, it was amazing. The curves, the lines, the extruding discs that looked like Roman gladiator helmets all come together to form an amazing visual appearance. The first thing I noticed when I walked in was how high-tech this museum was. There were images displayed from projectors all over the place. This seemed to be the theme as we continued to walk through. The exhibits they displayed were very detailed and elaborate. The animals were so lifelike. They felt as if they were going to get up and walk away. One of the nicest features the museum offers with its exhibits is the ability to interact with them. They had touchscreens that allowed you to see many types of different visuals. Many of the exhibits were so engaging. If you happen to lose track of time, you could easily find yourself spending an hour just in one exhibit room. We had a short amount of time, so we tried to move it along as fast as we could, which was kind of a bummer because we would have loved to dig a little more into a lot of these exhibits. We headed out the back and into the courtyard that would lead us to the Al Thani Palace area that used to be the original museum before they built this one around it in 2019, blending the historical with modern architectural elements, showcasing Qatar's rich heritage. Afterwards, we headed back into the museum, headed up the stairs to the main floor, and took one last look at some of the exterior exhibits they had located in the center of the structure. We got back in the vehicle and headed to our next stop at the Souq Waqif, a market set in the middle of Doha that is one of the oldest places in the whole city. The souk sells traditional garments, spices, handcrafts, and souvenirs. It's also home to restaurants and shisha lounges. It's located in the district of Al Souq, which is situated in the center of Doha. As it was a market used for trading activities, the area used to be located immediately on the shore to allow for boats to access it from Doha Bay. The phrase Souq Waqif stems from the fact that traders used to set up shop at the gates to show off their wares. It was a gathering place where locals would trade a variety of goods, primarily livestock. However, with the boom in prosperity in the 1990s, the souk fell into decline, and in 2003, most of it was destroyed in a fire. This event initiated a restoration program by the government in 2006, with the purpose of preserving its architectural and historical identity. Buildings constructed after the 1950s were demolished, whereas older structures were refurbished. This is a statue by Cesar Baldacchini called Le Pouce, or the Thumb, based on a cast of his own thumb. It was sculptured to mark the biggest sporting success in Qatar's history. We then walked over to the gold market to check out some gold. Many establishments here offer jewelry in intricate designs using different gems and metals. Some jewelry shops even offer customization options for their customers. This was the courtyard just outside the market area, where they hold various cultural events, live performances, and art exhibits, making it a hub of activity for both locals and tourists. Our next stop was to visit the Flagpoles of the World, located just south of the Corniche area. Along the way, we saw these camels, ridden by palace guards to protect the emir at the Palace of Qatar. When we arrived, we got out and walked around for a few minutes, taking in the site that was designated as a symbol for the FIFA World Cup back in 2022. The space was very picturesque, and we made sure we took a few photos before we left. They also have guided boat tours nearby as well. You can see all the boats lined up in the water. The view of the city buildings was a nice backdrop to take advantage of a great picture-taking opportunity. The next stop was a tour of the Katara Cultural Village. It took us about 10 minutes to drive there from the flagpoles. The complex has an open amphitheater, an opera house, a multi-purpose cinema, a multi-purpose conference hall, a beach, and a market. It includes an open-air shopping mall equipped with outdoor air conditioning, named 21 High Street. That's right, you heard me, an outdoor air conditioning system with events in the ground. The complex is also host to a variety of different exhibitions, festivals, workshops, lectures, concerts, and religious activities. The buildings and facilities at Qatar were deliberately arranged to reflect the country's cultural and architectural heritage. We walked on over to the Qatar Multipurpose Hall, and it is definitely a grand and imposing building that is hard to miss. Designed by French architect Jean Nouvel and opened in 2009, this 3,275 square meter building is made of steel, glass, and stone. Its striking silhouette and modern design stand out among the more traditional buildings in the area. Situated at the very edge of the ocean, the hall features spectacular views of the Persian Gulf, which can be admired from its terraces and many exterior balconies. After we left the village, we headed over to a place called Tasty Street. This place had a bunch of different shops with all types of tasty treats. We ended up at the Katara Cup and had a delicious banana shake. And ooh, was it tasty! When we finished with our shakes, we headed up to a place called Pearl Island. The streets at night were so beautiful along the way, especially driving through the Piazza Arabia and across the bridge. It was a sight to see all the lights twinkling off the water as we drove through. When we crossed the bridge, we stopped at a parking lot near the water, and I took a few photos before we concluded our evening. So, we called it a night, loaded up, and headed out to the airport. All in all, the tour was a great experience. For the short amount of time we had, I feel we really got to see a good chunk of the city. Our tour guide was great. He gave us a lot of information on all the destinations we stopped at. He seemed to know a lot about Doha. He even informed us about some interesting societal norms in the city that I had no idea about. If you've never been to the Doha International Airport, you will be pleasantly surprised how nice this airport is. The first thing we did was check out the Orchard, an indoor garden with pathways, seating, and little huts to relax in too. The garden area also has a ton of high-end shopping in the vicinity, from Louis Vuitton, Dior, Loro Piana, not to mention all the various restaurants too. We had a bite to eat at a place called Street Pizza. It was pretty good, I couldn't complain. To get here, you have to walk all the way to the end of the terminal, so unless you have a flight leaving from here, your visit will have to be quite intentional to make the haul because this airport is huge. But the walk is well worth it. We ended up relaxing at the Louis Vuitton lounge while we ate our food. This was probably the nicest lounge we have ever stayed at. It had plenty of seating. The free snacks were great, and the restrooms were on another level. They even had showers. So we just kicked back and waited for our flight. The flight back home was bittersweet, thinking about the good times we had and how much we'll miss the time spent in Africa and Qatar. This was a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and one we will always remember. Maybe someday we'll find a way to get back, but for the time being, memories will have to be something we'll have to hold on to. And trust me, we plan to hold on to these memories for a very long time.